What's up everybody? Today we are going to build a Django application running in a Docker container and a Postgres database running in a different container. These two containers are going to run, they're going to be connected to the same Docker network, right? We're going to learn how we can, one Docker container can recognize another Docker container when they're connected to the same network, right? And first, this right here is the demo of the application. It's easy, it's nothing much. Let's just see how it looks like. Yeah, it's just a task application which I've implemented some simple CRUD functionality, some create, delete, update, retrieve all the tasks and that. It's nothing complex, right? So let's go and check the code. We see how we've utilized Docker Compose to run two different containers connected to the same network, and the different containers in our case is a Django application and a Postgres database, right? So let's check out the code. As you can see here, the code, there's nothing complex. It's just a core project to the tasks application, and I don't think we'll check much about the code because that's not the main purpose of this video. You see, it's a view set. It does all the CRUD functionality, some serializer, nothing much, and a task model. Yeah, so let's start by setting up our virtual our environment variables. We set up our database, that is, right? So we will use OS to create our environment variables. So I'll just import OS, and I'll set up the environment variables of the database. Nothing much. So I'll just get rid of this. I'll change this to PostgreSQL, and for the name, we're going to use os.environ.get. I'll give it a name, SQL name. It could be any name. The user can give some like SQL user. We got password, and we got hosts. Alright, and we got, what else do we have? We have port. And I think that's it. Let me check. Yeah, that's it. So we've set up our database. What next? So after setting up our database, what next you can do is let's create a .env file so that you can set up these environment variables right here. .env, and let me split the screen. Yeah, so we can set up SQL name. We can give it a name like what are we working on? Tasks. Let's say tasks db. It's the name of the database, by the way. That's the name of the database, SQL name. Then we got SQL user. We can say array SQL password. We can say password. Okay. We got hosts. Hosts will be the name of the Postgres container, right? I've not yet created the Docker Compose file yet, so we don't know the name of the Postgres container. We will come and set this up later. What else do we got? We got port. Port by default is 5432. Postgres port. And yeah, I think that's it. The env variable is set up, so let's set up the Docker file and the Docker Compose file. I'll just close this and create a Docker file. without an extension. That's it. And yeah, now we're going to write some instructions which will be run when we want to build an image. So we first by bringing in the base image, which is going to be Python. I'm going to use python.11.4 slim bullseye. Sorry about that. Once you get the image, that's the base image, then we're going to set up two environment variables. I'm going to say the reason why for the environment variables. One is Python unbuffered, we can set it to 1, and another one is Python, don't write bytecode, don't write byte code. So in this first environment variable right here, Python unbuffered, it will tell Python that it should not buffer the standard output and the standard error. So if there's an error, something like that, it should go direct to the log file. It should not be buffered. But when I say buffered, it means like stored somewhere, right? In a memory, something like that. It should not be stored. It should just be taken directly to the. If maybe you have configured logging in your application, so you want that standard output or standard error to go directly to the log. It should not be buffered, so that when, let's say, the container shuts down, you can go to your log and see all the logs, right? There's nothing that was buffered. And for the Python don't write bytecode, it tells Python that there is this .pyc files. It tells Python, it prevents Python from writing .pyc files to the disk. Then we're going to set up our work directory, and I'm just going to call it /app, and then I'm going to copy all this content right here, all these folders and files from the current directory to the currently working directory, right? And we have set up our working directory as app. You can also take it directly to the absolute path. Put the absolute path, which is okay. Any can work. And then after that, you can, let's say you want to run some updates, in the Docker container that are going to spin up. So get update, it will update all the packages which are installed in the OS level. Then we can next run some dependencies, install some dependencies. Pip install our requirements.txt, and before that we will copy the requirement.txt file. Copy. Okay, at the moment I see that I've not created the requirement.txt file, but I'm going to create it in a moment. Copy requirement.txt file to the current directory. Then I think that's it. Yeah, to run our application, we're going to create a script right now. We'll get into that, a bash script. But yeah, so let's create our requirements.txt file. I don't know. Okay. What you can do is pip freeze so okay, yeah, so Django REST framework, those are dependencies at the moment. And we're going to install another dependency. It's a Python SQL adapter, right? Like the dependency is SecOpG2 binary. Let me install it first, then we talk about it. SecOpG2 binary, you can see the name there, right there. So this is this package right here. It will help us connect to the Postgres database, right, using Python. Other languages have their own package that they can use to connect to a database. So this SecObj2 binary will help us connect to the Postgres container, a Postgres database. Okay, and you can eliminate this part here, right? This part hyphen binary, but when you eliminate that part, there's a dependency that you'll have to install in your Docker container, that has your Django application, right? But for development purposes, you can just use SecObj2 binary, which means you won't have to install other dependencies right there. So yeah, so let's update our requirements.txt file right there. Yeah, that's it. And yeah, it's right here. Everything is working fine. Our Docker file is working fine, right? So let me create that script. This script, we're going to run this script when we want to build, when we want to spin up a container that is running our Django application. So start.sh, and so what basically we're going to run in this script is we're going to make the migrations, and we're going to run migrate python manual.py make migrations, and we're going to specify no input. So we're just going to run server, nothing complex, and we're going to run it in port 8000, right? Yeah, nothing complex right here. So this script, I'm going to use it in my Docker Compose file. You'll see we are creating that right now. Docker compose.yaml. So in this Docker Compose file, why are we using a Docker Compose file? Because I can spin up a Postgres container by just running docker run, just quickly like that, something like that, and I can spin up a Postgres container. I can spin up this Django container, running a Django application, right? But the importance of using Docker Compose, it will create a network by default. So these two containers, they'll be connected, they'll be running the same network, they'll be connected to the same network, so it will be easy for the two containers to communicate with each other, right? We're going to see that right now. So we're going to start by specifying the version that we're going to use, which at the moment it's 3.8, and we're going to specify the services. I'll start by the web. This is the name of the service. You can use any name. So build, say build context. So this is just build this Docker file right here. You're building this Docker file right here to have an image, right, which we'll use to spin up container. You can specify ports. This is port binding. You want our Django application to be recognized outside this network, right? Because we're going to test it in our machine right here, our local, my laptop, right? Not inside the container. So we're doing some port binding. And then we're going to have command, and in this command, that's where we're going to run this script right here. Start .sh. We're going to run this script right here so that we can start our Django application can run, right? And we're going to specify volumes. Remember, as I said, this is for development purposes, so you'll want to, so basically this does right here is if there's any change in the current directory, right? Dot means current directory. If there's any change in the current directory, it should be reflected to our app directory, which is inside the Docker container, right? So it means, and if the change is recognized, of course the server will reload and bring in the new changes. Again, this is just for the development purposes. for production there's a lot different things that we'll do, like using GUnicorn, and we won't use these volumes right here, we won't use run server, you see. But this is just for development purposes. For production, maybe I'll make another video. Then for the env file, I'm going to specify the env file that it's going to read all our dependencies, and the name is .env. And I can notice, okay, it's already I've already created it. And next is depends on. So basically this does here is like don't start this container before what I'm going to put right here, before the name of the other container, which I'm not yet created, but I'm creating it right now. So yeah, so the other service is PostgreSDB, and you're going to pull the image from Docker Hub. Then it's Postgres. What this will do is just grab the latest Postgres image, right? You can specify the version if you want, if it is 15, if it is 14, 13, all that. I'm just going to grab the latest, which I assume it's 15 right now. For the volumes, I'm going to say Postgres data, which will map it to var lib PostgreSQL data. I'm going to create the volumes right here. This I have to create a volumes called Postgres data, which I'm going to create down here. Let me just create it right now. Volumes Postgres data. There you go. What next? Yeah, we need to specify our environment variables. Yeah, so for the Postgres, what we need to specify here is there's a couple environment variables that we need to specify. The one that it's needed, it's a must, it's the PostgreSDB, I think. The PostgreSDB. The other they'll be used by default. They'll be set up by default. What is the name? We are reading it from the environment variables, by the way. So let me just split this up. SQL name and Postgres user, SQL user, Postgres password, it's SQL password. Yeah, I'm just going to use those three environment variables. For the port by default is 5432, so yeah. I think that's it, if I'm not wrong. Oh yeah, for the host, as I said, now here, how do these two containers recognize each other? So they recognize each other by using the names. The name, let me just load this and this. Take a second. Yeah, so they recognize each other by using the names of the services. As you can see here, we have two services, right? The web and PostgreSDB. So these two containers here recognize each other by the name of the service, right? So for the host, you can specify the host as PostgreSDB. Yeah, I think that should be it, right? We got our Docker Compose setup, we got a Docker file setup, env stuff. Yeah, I think that's it. Let's try to spin this up. and see what the result is, right? But first I had a Docker container running, so yeah, I need to stop that and come here. This was for the demo application, so I'll just remove that. Okay, so let's spin this up. I'm going to run docker compose app build. So build, the flag build will just say like build the docker file right here, this docker file right here, like build it from afresh. So guys, in my application it is now running successfully. As you can see, it's running in the, this is the link to my server, and we'll just control click. Why do I have to change this to localhost? Change this to localhost. Right, that definitely wasn't my expectation. What happened right there? Maybe we didn't register the URLs. Okay, we didn't register. I didn't register my URLs. This part it's not supposed to be. I should have already worked on it, but I can do it real quick. It's nothing complex. That should do it. And as you can see, I've made a change in this directory right here, and it's reloading. That's what I was talking about when I said adding this part right here, this part right here. Okay, this part right here, these volumes, right? So when you make a change in this directory right here, the current directory, right, it will reflect to the app directory, and the app directory is the working directly inside the Docker container that's running our Django application, right? Because we specified that in our Docker file right here, work directory. Okay, let's check the application. It should be working, hopefully. Yeah, it does work now. I go to tasks. Yeah, we are connected to the Postgres database, right? But let's confirm that, right? Let's create a task, then you go to the Postgres database and query using SQL, so that you can see if that task is visible from there. What can I say? I love listening to music. It's not a task, but yeah, it can work. So we've created a task, and let's query using SQL language from the Postgres container. So it means you'll have to get inside the Postgres container and run some queries. Open another terminal. Okay, so let's check the running containers. Which containers they're running? We have two running containers right here. We have two running containers. Let me just close this right here and this right here. And as you can see, this is a Postgres container, this is the other Django container running our Django application. So let's get into the Postgres container because we want to run SQL query. What can we do? Use exec it, then we specify the ID, container ID of the Postgres, and we want to open a bash shell, and we are in. You can run ls and all that stuff. So let's use PSQL to open a Postgres shell where we can run the SQL queries. So PSQL, you can specify the user. What did you use as a user? you gotta pass the authentication, right? User, and I think also you have to specify the DB name, but I think it's flag D. If it's wrong, we'll check. We'll correct that. So yeah, okay, we are connected. Yeah, tasks DB. We are connected to the tasks DB, and we can run. Let's check all the tables, and these are all the tables. Again, most of them are by default, and this right here, our tasks _ task. That's what we want to query and see if indeed there is that task that we created from the web, from the Chrome. This right here, this task. So we run our SQL query, which will just use the select statement star. That means all columns star from the table tasks _ task and semicolon. Yeah, right there. Listen to songs. Let's add another task just to test it out again. Watch football, man. It's not complete. Oops, my mic. Watch football. Yeah. And now when we refresh, we have 2 tasks created. Let's run again another query. Select. Can just go up. Right there. See, we are now connected to the Postgres container. The Django container is connected to the Postgres container. This has been made easy because of Docker Compose. We've leveraged Docker Compose. So we've utilized we have created services, 2 services, a web service and a PostgreSDB service. And these two services, which there are containers, right? They're connected to the same network. So it's easy for one service to recognize the other using just the name, PostgreSDB or web. Right? You can again do it without using Docker Compose, but it's much easier using Docker Compose. So yeah, I think that's the purpose of this video. So I hope you learned something. If you did, you can share it in the comment section, and I love if you leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and you'll get more content about the web. Thanks for watching. Ciao.